Southeast Asia and Berlin are not the only hazard areas in the orchestrated struggle of the Cold War. There is Cuba, from which Bay of Pigs invaders hobble back when their ransom is paid.
The president visits the big missile center at Vandenberg Air Force Base. He becomes the nation's first president to see an intercontinental ballistic missile fired when an Atlas D blasts off its pad to roar down the Pacific Missile Range in a perfect launch.
The French army has seized Algeria in a revolt against de Gaulle. More on that later. In Laos, the government's army suffered its worst defeat of the civil.
But it is increasingly clear to this reporter that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate.
I think I got that right.
Victors,
oh no.
But as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.
Really hope I got that right. Starting this stream so that if I screw up,
for the
I can go back
presidency of the
and
United
watch.
States. I do not run for the presidency merely to oppose any man,
I'm going to mute this for a second.
oppose new policies.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm just watching versions 3 and version 2 of the tapes that we got on Friday and Saturday because the code keeps changing. So that's all I'm doing right now. And I'm streaming it. So if I screw up, I can look back over and get the code and put it in Noah J's Discord.
January 1968, the Tet Offensive. Suddenly, the enemy finds new strength to strike, denying all American tales of progress.
Vietnam is wrecked like battle. Saigon is scorched.
United States bombers continued their raids against the North. Our military called the attacks necessary, but Hanoi said that no peace talks could begin until the bombing stopped.
In Morocco's capital city of Rabat, crowds estimated at over 1 million jammed the route of the funeral procession of King Mohammed V. His son and heir, King Hassan, and Tunisian President Bourguiba helped carry the bier.
When finally Vice Premier Key had to go on the air to announce a general curfew throughout the city and the imposition of martial law, he had to do it on the American Armed Forces radio station because his own Saigon radio station had been blown to pieces.
1-5.
Aircraft and our naval vessels to make no attacks on North Vietnam, except in the area north of the demilitarized zone where the continuing enemy buildup directly threatens Allied forward position.
The North Vietnamese would talk. Gabriel Harriman. With Marshal.
But now, in March, his generals report they need 200,000 more men in Vietnam. These troops he sends to war are fellow citizens. Their warm and precious lives pledged to a cause that many of their countrymen wish to yield. Courage to persist is of the essence of a leader. Courage to stop sometimes.
Oh, somebody got the V2 already. Somebody did it. 1506 24 25 18 11 12 19 13 01 16.
Now, the communist offensive, almost every city and town in South Vietnam is cut off from the others.
President Thieu of South Vietnam said today that anyone who advocates a coalition government for his nation is a traitor. That it will give North Vietnam a total of $45 million in aid and long-term credit.
Where did he say that? Okay. I might just go back
The
to
minority chants its protest.
V3 because I'm not confident with the last number.
Cuban
It
Army
should be,
pilots
yeah.
opened the first phase of organized revolt with bombing raids on 3
See if
military
anybody
bases.
else got it.
In Havana, acting Foreign Minister Olivares shows diplomats rockets fired from the Cuban raiders, which he claims have U.S. marking.
These charges are totally false, and I deny them categorically. The United States has committed no aggression against Cuba, and no offensive has been launched from Florida or from any other part of the United States.
Es un honor para mí el estar hoy entre un grupo de los hombres más valientes del mundo.
Still have no idea what she's saying. Third day watching this.
Castro gloated over his victory and told the world that Cuba was now a socialist nation and would hold no more elections. The next day, the United States officially proclaimed Cuba to be a communist satellite state.
His first great success in space when the Russians pushed a man
So where are
across
we
the
at
threshold.
then?
He was Yuri Gagarin, the astronaut the Russians lionized as the first to
93.
propaganda coup of the year.
Today, this Redstone Mercury is the
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
As Lieutenant Commander Shepard walks to the elevator.
1593. We're not even halfway through yet. We still have 37, 15, 08, 25, 60, 48. And then I got at the end. Where did I say it? 6-3 and 2-8. But I'm not confident with the last one. So I'm watching it again. For now a fourth time.
300 miles downrange, right on target, and was picked up by waiting helicopters.
37.
The triumph of Alan B. Shepard, U.S. space pioneer.
Alright, day 3's not crossed out yet on the pawn takes pawn. Equals MC squared.
Explosive bolts on the escape hatch let go, and the Mercury is lost. However, the moon gets closer.
Albany, Georgia. A Negro fight against segregation is led by the Reverend Martin Luther King.
And if necessary, we must be willing to fill up the jails all over the state of Georgia.
I think one more pops up here.
Шар превращается в колоссальный светящийся купол. Яркое свечение еще продолжается. В этом опыте оно длится необычайно долго.
Maybe not.
Страшной силы напутствует прихода ударной волны.
Just why the Soviet Union would wish to detonate a megaton explosion, something about which we can all speculate.
At Oxford, integration at the University of Mississippi becomes a one-man crusade. When Air Force veteran James Meredith tries to register, the police lines are drawn, U.S. Marshals blocked. When university officials are cited for contempt of federal court, Governor Ross Barnett personally Negro applicant. Meredith goes away, and the federal government ponders its next move. The forces increased tenfold and more. It is not enough to avert a night of rioting, leaving 2 dead and the campus the shambles of a battlefield. "75 students and other rioters are arrested. Among those seized, former Major General Edwin Walker, who is charged with insurrection. And and James Meredith becomes a duly registered student at the University of Mississippi.
Sir, there's been a great deal of turmoil and conflict. 2 people have been killed. Do you have any feelings of guilt? Have you given it any second thoughts?
I'm very sorry that anyone had to get hurt or killed. But of course, I think that's an unfair question to me. I don't believe any of you believe that I had anything to do with that.
President Kasavubu is in Leopoldville on his return from a conference of Congolese leaders in Madagascar, at which it was agreed to convert the republic into a loose confederation. The streets are jammed for a parade in celebration of the decision. But red opposition to the plan is heated, and the pro-Soviet Antoine Gizenga,
I'm going to mute myself just in case.
Still controls key areas and sizable armed forces. The Congo's problems are far from over.
Vienna was a neutral arena for a sparring match between 2 worlds. The men who hold the power to write tomorrow's history met, smiled, and resolved no problems. The dictator and the president, the East and the West.
St. James Church in the Hudson River hamlet of Hyde Park is the scene of last rites for the First Lady of the World, Eleanor Roosevelt. President Kennedy heads the list of distinguished world leaders who pay last tribute to the extraordinary and beloved woman who is remembered as a humanitarian and one who loved her fellow man.
There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
All right, the next one coming up should be 48.
The Cold War, the ground forces of NATO have been alert against the military threat of the communist bloc. Now, Honest John missiles add to NATO's striking power.
President Kennedy begins a tour of 4 space installations at Huntsville, Alabama, where he is greeted by Dr. Wernher von Braun, space pioneer and director of this research and development center. The missiles on display are dwarfed by the mighty Saturn rocket. This booster is the first stage of the rocket that will put the 3-man Apollo capsule into a 2-week orbit of the Earth in 1964.
48.
Lunar chute. Gemini, which was developed here, will allow 2 men to orbit the Earth for 2 weeks and will be used for experiments in outer space rendezvous and docking missions. This winds up the President's first-hand look at our space program and our progress in the race for space.
The first deficit comes from a recession. If we can take the proper action in the proper time, this can be the most important step we can take to prevent another recession. That is the right kind of a tax cut, both for your family budget and the national budget.
Chiang Kai-shek, leader of the peoples of Free China on the island of Taiwan, heads the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the overthrow of the Manchu dynasty. 11 million Chinese, strong with their dream of someday wresting their homeland from the communists, are marking the day that saw the end of 4,000 years of monarchy in China.
Khrushchev declared, through the formation of the world system of socialism, the situation in the world has altered radically. At present, it is not circle
63.
On December 2nd,
the last one I think is 28,
Castro reveals, I am a Marxist
which is
Leninist
also
and will
coming
be one until the day I die. Socialism is a word.
28. Okay.
There is no halfway between socialism and imperialism.
This government, as promised,
has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. To halt this offensive buildup, a strict quarantine on all offensive military equipment under shipment to Cuba is being initiated. All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, where they're found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back. It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response.
What is happening? Why am I
Union.
getting so many notifications right now?
Communism's adventure in Cuba is a sophisticated one. Political, psychological, subversive, with paramilitary features.
Douchebag.
Can a democratic society, wherein the right to know and the value of knowing are basic, can a democratic society wage successful political, psychological, subversive warfare against communism?
Leather is falling into step in the fall fashion parade.
I think that's it.
Finished in an explosion of rainbow colors, leather has been styled into smocks and sheath-top skirts like this eye-stopping pair. Just the thing for a day's outing at Sterling Forest Gardens in New York.
In Trafalgar Square, 2,000 Londoners demonstrate against the United States blockade.
Just saw the number 6. This guy is so far behind.
Cuba, charging the United States with arming and training mercenary forces for an imminent invasion. He calls out some 200,000 militiamen for training and guard duty at key points throughout Havana.
Just the video, the number answer machine.
Khrushchev happily receives a gift of the Cuban flag as he lines up with a solid endorsement for the home-brewed anti-Americanism of Fidel Castro, the Soviet sole Western Hemisphere ally.
As he arrives back in Washington, the president hears more bad news. China has just invaded India. Is this part of a two-pronged communist assault? Now the president must weigh all the factors one final time, then make his decision, knowing that whatever he does, he risks nuclear war.
Where are these people getting these numbers from?
Meanwhile, the United States continues to reinforce its Cuban base at Guantanamo Bay, the naval depot that Castro wants the U.S. to give up. These Marines have been assigned the job of protecting the base against any Cuban threats that might arise during the present crisis.
Mr. President, I am submitting today a resolution to the Security Council designed to find a way out of this calamitous
Somebody got the numbers for the orange tape.
This resolution calls, as an interim measure under Article 40 of the Charter, for the immediate dismantling and withdrawal from Cuba of all missile and other offensive weapons.
The inauguration of Abraham Lincoln as the 16th President of the United States is reenacted in the nation's capital 100 years after the event. There's a crowd larger than the original president this day, double the 10,000 of 1861. And the bright balmy day is in marked contrast to the gloomy overcast of a century ago. Scenes familiar from history books and movies come to life at the Capitol as Mr. Lincoln arrives. He is portrayed.
The following is the letter which has just been dispatched from the President to Chairman Khrushchev. I think that you and I, with our heavy responsibilities for the maintenance of peace, were aware that developments were approaching a point where events could have become unmanageable. So I welcome this message and consider it an important contribution to peace.
It urgently recommends that the United States and the Soviet Union confer promptly on measures to remove the existing threat to the security of the Western Hemisphere and the peace of the world, and to report thereon to the Security Council.
Earlier today, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara announced that yesterday's photographic surveillance of Cuba indicated that the bases were being dismantled.
But with increased United
Damn,
States
there's a
aid and
20-second. There's
instruction,
more than a
Vietnam
20-second
soldiers learned to
delay.
fight back against the
There's like a
communist Viet Cong.
25-second delay on my stream.
Helicopters become a crucial weapon against guerrillas who strike, then disappear will-o'-the-wisp in marshes. Southeast Asia and Berlin are not the only hazard areas in the orchestrated struggle of the Cold War. There is Cuba, from which Bay of Pigs invaders hobble back when their ransom is paid.
The president visits the big missile center at Vandenberg Air Force Base. He becomes
This one's almost over.
president to see an intercontinental ballistic missile fired when an Atlas D blasts off its pad to roar down the Pacific Missile Range in a perfect launch.
Whoa, what is that? Okay. Right. Right. This guy is taking credit for what I did.
For it seems now more certain than ever that the bloody experience of Vietnam is to end in a stalemate. But it is increasingly clear to this reporter that the only rational way out then will be to negotiate, not as victors, but as an honorable people who lived up to their pledge to defend democracy and did the best they could.
I am announcing today my candidacy for the presidency of the United States. I do not run for the presidency merely to oppose any man, but to propose new policies.
So it just seems to me what is required in the United States is what Vice President Humphrey has said, which is the politics of joy and the politics of happiness, but the politics of reality. What the problems are in the country. I mean, it's all fine that we have all of these. Thank you. You come with me.
Ha ha ha. Dumbass bitch.
January 1968. The Tet
Somebody wrote all of them down.
Suddenly, the enemy finds new strength to strike, denying all American tales of progress.
Vietnam is right in my battle. Saigon is scorched. United States bombers continue their raids against the North. Our military called the attacks necessary.
I wasn't looking. Did any numbers pop up?
Would begin until the bombing stopped.
I think the first number is supposed to be 15.
Crowds estimated at over 1 million jammed the route of the funeral procession of King Mohammed
What's going on up there?
His son and heir, King Hassan, and Tunisian President Bourguiba helped carry the bier.
When finally Vice Premier Key had to go on the air to announce a general curfew throughout the city and the imposition of martial law, he had to do it on the American Armed Forces radio station because his own Saigon radio station had been blown to pieces.
Yeah, there you go,
Ordered
15.
our aircraft and our naval vessels to make no attacks on North Vietnam, except in the area north of the demilitarized zone where the continuing enemy buildup directly threatens Allied forward position.
The North Vietnamese would talk, Gabriel Harriman. With Marshal...
But now, in March, his generals report they need 200,000 more men in Vietnam. These troops he sends to
Everybody's
war are
yelling at
fellow
my dog.
citizens. Their warm and
37,
precious
25,
lives
48.
pledged to a cause that many of their countrymen wish to yield. Courage to persist is of the essence of a leader. Courage to stop sometimes takes greater will.
For the 8th day in a row, fighting continues here in the Cholan district.
Now, since the communist offensive, almost every city and town in South Vietnam is cut off from the others.
President Thieu of South Vietnam said today that anyone who advocates a coalition government for his nation is a traitor. That it will give North Vietnam a total of $45 million in aid and long-term credits.
Version 3 I have, which... Nope, that's not it.
I say that when respect for the United States has fallen all over the world, but when it has fallen so low that a fourth-rate military power will hijack an American naval vessel in international waters, then it's time for new leadership for the American people at home. And we should provide
24.
10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. The engines are armed. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have cleared the top.
Tower clear. 13 seconds.
This one doesn't make it, doesn't it? Oh no, never mind.
Apollo 8, Houston. Apollo 8, Houston. Apollo 8, Houston. Apollo 8, over. Hello, Apollo 8. Loud and clear.
Roger. Please be informed there is a Santa Claus.
That's affirmative. You're the best ones to know.
As Borman, Lovell, and Anders stepped onto the carrier deck, a huge and patriotic celebration broke loose in Mission Control. A celebration echoed by the hundreds of thousands of men and women who were Apollo 8.
One step on the moon. What do you think of it?
I can't believe in how short, just 8 years, how long we just made us. We beat the Russians and everything. I can't believe it, that it just happened. And we can see it in our lifetime. And how much we'll probably see, that my whole lifetime, more.
Nowhere is the grotesque nature of this year's politics more vivid than in Washington. For the first time since the Civil War, soldiers must defend the Capitol. Machine guns turned upon Americans, whose laws no longer bind.
Люди прочтут в газетах, услышат по радио, космический корабль пилотирует разгоняемый советского.
Peter Wright. What am I doing? I'm watching TV. I'm watching a tape from 1968. I'm writing all the numbers down that pop up. That's all I'm doing. Because I have no life.
Feeling so proud and just wanting to belong to the country. And it's the most wonderful feeling anyone could ever have.
I still have to watch the 1972 tape.
The tragic news from Czechoslovakia shocks the conscience of the world.
This is what I have so far.
Its allies have invaded a defenseless country to stamp out a resurgence of ordinary human freedom.
The number on the sides here, the version 1, version 2, version 3, that changes every day. So this one we got on Friday. And the numbers in the video have changed twice now. This is the third time we've got new numbers for that. It's frustrating. This is just for them to like announce a video game. Like that's literally all this is. I don't understand why they can't just be like, oh yeah, this is the new game that's coming out. Buy it. But no, I have to watch tapes about Cold War and Vietnam 18. And listen to this idiot speak to me in Russian like I give a shit. You missed the 25. Let me see if the Discord got it. What tape is this? Orange?
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Nixon chooses Chicago to open his
That's
assault
wrong.
on Humphrey in September. There, where only 1 week earlier, streets and parks were
Yeah,
battleground.
yeah, I got the 25. Somebody got the 25. Let me make sure I have it. 11. Yep,
Week
I'm
carries
good.
him from Chicago to San Francisco and back across the land. Buoyant, wherever he campaigns, he underscores his message.
This is good. It's like a history lesson. Oh, day 3's done. Wow, they did everything already. What the hell? That was so fast. That was an hour. Less than an hour. It's like 45 minutes it took them. What?
The Marines and Airborne advanced into the Communist line.
I don't know if anybody wrote the numbers down for the 112. Should be 4 more numbers after this. After that. What is that?
American youth today has its fringes, but that's part of the greatness of our country.
American youth today has its cringes. I agree.
The youth of today can change the world. And if they understand that, I think that we're going to go forward to a great age. Not just for America.
Oh, is that the reflection on the TV?
Peace and progress for all the people in the world.
Should be something right. Oh, that does kind of look like a map. Like roads. Oh. And somebody sitting there? I don't know how they got that. Maybe. Oh, yeah, I could see like a hand. Here, just so you can see what I'm looking at. Oh, I clicked out of it. What the fuck? Oh, my face is probably blocking that. 19. $13. Okay.
This game depends, however, on his unwritten alliance with Reagan.
Yeah, it looks like a
Announcing
hand
open
and the
candidacy,
arm.
Reagan now speeds from caucus to caucus.
Means
If Reagan can persuade his southern friends to
there's the
break
window,
their
so the
prior
guy's head
pledges
should
to
be like
Nixon,
right here.
the convention will come apart.
Yeah, it does kind of look like a person sitting there. That's weird. That's so weird. That's probably going to have nothing. A 1.
NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, presents Aeronautics and Space Report. At Christmas time,
It's so hard to tell, though.
USS Pueblo returned home after nearly a year of captivity in North Korea. And his crew
16.
were met by relatives in San Diego.
That should be the last number, unless somebody in the Discord screwed up.
A tale of torture at the hands of the communists bent on extracting confessions. Weeks of probing lay ahead, but for the Pueblo crew, it was a time for rejoicing and sorrow. Grief for the one shipmate.
astronauts Neil A. Armstrong, Edwin E. Aldrin,
Can't
and
tell.
Michael Collins, the three men who will make the next and most historic round trip to the moon.
All this, this is all just to find out what the next game is going to be this year. Believe this? Yeah, that does kind of look like a map. The foot and the leg I can't see. I can see everything from like here up.
Spacecraft and themselves in good condition. Data must be collected and reported. Experiments must be performed, including photography both inside and outside the spacecraft. Because of the film speed, these actions appear faster than they actually were.
In Vietnam, Viet Cong rockets hit Saigon during the night for the first time in 2.5 weeks, killing 2 civilians and wounding 25.
The new communist campaign in Vietnam continues. Just after midnight their time, a band of Viet Cong raiders blew up a power installation and attacked 2 police stations in Saigon. Other small bands still roam the city.
Hamburger Hill was the biggest engagement so far in Operation Apache Snow, started 3 weeks ago. The objective of the operation was not the hill, but control of the A Shau, the main infiltration route threatening northern coastal
That's
cities.
a really good one.
After the 101st Airborne Division troopers
That's a really good one.
Hamburger Hill from the enemy, there was a pause in the fighting. Big guns were cleaned.
The 10-day offensive against the dug-in enemy cost 55 American lives
It's
and
like a
300
hand and an
wounded.
arm,
Enemy
guy's
losses
head.
are put at 400.
I still can't see the leg and the
President
foot.
Nixon's interest is in getting the U.S. out of the war in
That looks
some
like a map.
acceptable way, whereas President Two's interest is in seeing his own government
See, the funny thing is
survive
the way the
end of the
glare
war.
is obviously intentional. You can't tell though.
In North Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh died. He had led his communist forces through 3 decades of warfare. After defeating the French, he fought the U.S. and her allies for 9 years.
I believe we must take risks for peace, but calculated risks, not foolish risks. We shall not trade our defenses for a disarming smile or charming words. We are prepared for new initiatives in the control of arms in the context of other specific moves to reduce
Somebody in
tensions
Discord
around the world.
said.
I believe that America
Where was
is
that?
not going to become
All
a
these
garrison
tapes are
state
during
or
the
a
Cold
welfare
War.
state or a police state,
Thanks,
simply
Dick.
because the American people will defend our values from those forces, external or internal, that would challenge or erode.
Are you bipolar? Get some help. Nice.
The moment you mention nuclear weapons today, a lot of people get jittery and they seem to don't even want to discuss it. Nuclear weapons are a deterrent to war. We ought to remain the strongest nuclear power in the world. And we won't use any weapons unless we have to. But we will use any weapons if necessary to protect America and her people.
More than 350,000 people, mostly young people, showed up to hear the greatest rock groups in the country. The promoters billed it as 3 days of peace and music. And for most people, it was just that. Little thanks to the promoters. There were many problems, like not enough sanitation facilities, food, or water.
Good morning. It'll be 2 or 3 days before all the people leave the peace and quiet of the Catskill Mountains. It may be longer before this area returns to normal. Despite the problems, and there were many problems, though they were not...
Tablets or liquid.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Underneath it says, men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace. I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene. That's all right, I don't mind a bit. How is the quality of the TV? Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is. Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent? Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
Astronauts Collins, Aldrin, and Armstrong came out of their sealed quarantine tank last night and today had their first day at home in peace. But it will not last long. The schedule in front of them is in some ways more arduous than their trip to the moon.
It's almost over. It is over. Now we move to the last one. Come on. There we go.
The weekly military casualty figures were released today in Saigon. 11 Americans were killed in combat, 20 were wounded. More than 900 South Vietnamese soldiers were killed and more than 3,200 South Vietnamese wounded.
In one important aspect, the offensive has backfired badly on the North Vietnamese. It has harmed them politically inside South Vietnam. For the first time, there is a remarkable degree of political solidarity in the country. President Thieu is firmly in control. The only criticism has come from opposition leaders who felt they had to say something to protect their positions. Even they have not blamed Thieu for the
That would be really dumb, but they speak English in Vietnam?
President Thieu's position is still largely dependent on the support he gets from Washington. He is the American choice to run Vietnam.
No, it's Vietnamese.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Monka ass.
We are certifying the 26th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States.
I didn't miss any numbers, but
as you know, provides for the right to vote of all of our young people between 18 and 21. 11 million new voters as a result of this amendment.
A massive shock.
I didn't miss any numbers,
rippling
right?
out of the mountains just north of the San Fernando Valley. Hitting here, missing there, but shaking most of Southern California. Fires everywhere.
I don't think I missed anything.
I think Pete's absolutely right about this medical job. This is the first time we've ever had the space available to really adequately test a guy up there to see how he behaves under zero gravity for long periods. So we really don't know what's going to happen to the guy in the long term. And this is probably, to my mind, the single most important thing that we've got to do in Total Skylab is find out whether man himself does have a future in space in terms of making long journeys to somewhere else.
Now people are beginning to pick up the pieces.
What are you looking for down there?
Money and all sorts of things like spoons, forks, and knives, parts of mirrors, parts
Spoons,
of plates,
forks, knives, pots, and mirrors.
You found anything?
Yep, money, spoons, razor blades.
Razor
What did you
blades.
find?
$4.98
How long are you going to keep digging?
till I have to go home.
I will only say that I've had some experience, and a great deal of experience, as a matter of fact, in this past year in dealing with communist leaders. I find that making a bargain with them is not easy. And you get something from them only when you have something they want to get from you. The only way we're going to get our POWs back is to be doing something to them, and that means hitting military targets in North Vietnam, retaining a residual force in South Vietnam, and continuing the mining of the harbors of North Vietnam.
Apollo 16 lifts America back into space and gives our astronauts a dune buggy tour of lunar land.
I wonder if you go on Black Ops, and you sit in the main menu, and it's got all the TVs, if
I think
it
that
flashes
it's interesting to consider what Margaret Mead said about women who are honored in authority in this country. She said that, in fact, widows are the only such women, because what you have to do is be married to a man who has a certain position, live out your role of childbearing and housekeeping. Then, through no fault of yours, he dies. And then alone, is it all right for you to take over his job? We've decided that that's awfully hard on the men.
Señor presidente, vemos este hermoso espectáculo de niños en brazos de sus madres. Aquí están dos jóvenes madres con dos hermosas niñas que las abrazan.
At this rally in Silver Spring, Maryland, Governor Wallace's campaign is crushed by violence. Arthur Bremer, seen applauding a 21-year-old busboy, uses the cover of the crowd and the confusion to get close enough to the candidate for an attempted assassination.
Today was the critical operation for the governor to remove a bullet lodged near his spinal column and to find out whether the bullet had cut his spine. A controversial day in politics. A man arrested trying to bug the offices of the Democratic National Committee in Washington turns out to be an employee of President Richard Nixon's re-election campaign committee. And perhaps a significant day for the Vietnam peace negotiations. The president of the Soviet Union has left Hanoi, saying they will resume soon.
Mother Nature unleashes the fury of Hurricane Agnes across 4 states: Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New York. 134 lives are lost. Thousands are homeless. Runs into the millions.
I can assure you that as Secretary General of this organization, I am deeply worried about this development. It is extremely serious. And it is for this reason that I decided on my own, I want to stress this, to put this question of terrorism and acts of violence on the agenda of the next General Assembly.
Next stop, Moscow. Purpose, a summit meeting between President Nixon and Soviet leaders Brezhnev and Kosygin. Agreement is reached on limitations of nuclear weapons, the sale of American wheat to the Soviets, and a trade of beverages, our soft drinks for their vodka. Another victory for personal diplomacy on a global scale.
In a field 4 miles from London Airport. The tail section was intact, but the body of the plane was demolished.
With the Paris peace talks stalled, the Vietnam War worsens. Responding to a devastating Viet Cong offensive, President Nixon orders new measures.
All entrances to North Vietnamese ports will be mined to prevent access to these ports and North Vietnamese naval operations from these ports.
But Gordon, he was in Hanoi apparently to talk about a new peace effort. He said the visit was successful and that the Soviet Union will do everything it can to bring about a de-escalation of the Vietnam War.
Paris continues to be the focal point of world attention. American negotiators arrive for another in a long series of peace talks with the North Vietnamese. Presidential aide Henry Kissinger, a key figure in the lengthy and complex conferences, sounds a premature note of hope. We believe
Federal indictments Washington today in the Watergate bugging affair.
In spite of the increased security, West Germany continues to offer political asylum to hijackers from communist countries. Just last week, the West German government refused to return 10 Czechoslovakians who killed a pilot during their hijack escape to the West.
As you know, I will soon be visiting the People's Republic of China, the Soviet Union. I go there with no illusions. We have great differences with both powers. We shall continue to have great differences. But peace depends on the ability of great powers to live together on the same planet despite their differences. We would not be true to our obligation to generations yet unborn if we failed to seize this moment to do everything in our power to ensure that we will be able to talk about those differences rather than to fight about them in the future.
Peking, historic site for an unprecedented meeting between East and West. Responding to a special invitation, President and Mrs. Nixon arrive, and Premier Zhou Enlai is on hand to extend an official welcome to the presidential couple. It's Mr. Nixon's initial move toward his self-proclaimed goal, a generation of peace. A confident president, anxious to end the diplomatic freeze between the United States and China.
07 again.
Aide Henry Kissinger joins the talks with Premier Zhou Enlai on Vietnam and East-West trade. The First Lady views giant pandas.
Have the numbers ever repeated before? Like in the same...
Personal presidential diplomacy tentatively parts the bamboo curtain.
His condemnation of U.S. military actions in Vietnam and revealing he brought back assurances from Hanoi about the release of American prisoners of war.
Including the foreign minister, talked for well over an hour with the prime minister, 2 hours and 45 minutes with the foreign minister, and I've got both verbal and written assurances about the prisoners.
Clarence Kelly, the president's choice to be permanent head of the FBI, cleared the Senate Judiciary Committee today. We'll have reports tonight on the economy, and we'll see what happened to a fat man who had part of his insides cut out in an effort to be a thin man.
Massive crowds take to the streets of the Egyptian capital. Euphoria. After 5 lean years, there are signs that Egypt is about to stand on its own feet. They are cheering this man. It was then that President Anwar Sadat dropped his diplomatic bomb. He announced that the Russians had been asked to withdraw their advisors from Egyptian soil after nearly a decade of Soviet-Egyptian cooperation.
Did I miss any numbers?
Televised violence can increase aggressive tendencies in some children. We will have to manage our program.
I congratulate you for that statement.
Ballot of the International Olympic Committee. Out of 70 ballots, 36 were to withdraw the invitation to the Rhodesian team, 31 were for maintaining it, and 3 were blank. This means the invitation to the Rhodesian team to participate in the games of the 20th Olympiad has been withdrawn.
The Rhodesians left angry. Representatives of Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda were jubilant. The expulsion of Rhodesia culminated a campaign that saw American black athletes pledge to walk out with the Africans. Now their teams, they say, will unpack their suitcases, give up their threatened boycott, and the Summer Olympics can go on.
Munich houses the Olympic flame as athletes from all over the globe gather for the traditional games. Officials hope that world tensions will not create an incident.
The President's press secretary said of this incident, "I'm not going to comment from the White House on a third-rate burglary attempt. Obviously," he said, "we don't condone that kind of second-rate activity." There was little Republican reaction today to the charges that they mounted a massive intelligence and sabotage operation against the Democrats.
Without moving a chess piece, he emerged world champion. Spassky had phoned the judge and conceded. With a stronger position, Fischer had achieved at adjournment the night before.
In Paris, on Avenue Kléber, in a former Gestapo headquarters, politicians have been talking for 4 years about ending a war. The truth of the matter is that the Paris peace talks, hailed as a major breakthrough in 1968, have by 1972 achieved nothing. The delegates still turn up, make accusatory speeches, and leave. And yet in other parts of Paris, secret meetings between Americans and North Vietnamese did attempt to break the deadlock. The American initiative was led by President Nixon's special advisor, Dr. Henry Kissinger. Since 1970, he has met North Vietnamese leaders 12 times. At their meetings, he offered much of what the communists demanded: the withdrawal of American forces and new elections in South Vietnam. But all offers were rejected or ignored, and the whole American formula publicly rebutted by Hanoi.
Apollo 17, first nighttime launch in history. The body of former Chief Executive Harry S. Truman lies in state. Death came at 88 after a long and typically courageous struggle with illness. Former President and Mrs. Johnson and President and Mrs. Nixon attend rites.
Mr. President, are you ready to take the constitutional oath? If you will place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, and please repeat after me. I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
I, Richard Nixon, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve and protect
and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. So help me God.
Alexander Butterfield drops a bombshell. The president has secretly taped all of his White House conversations, including those involving Watergate. The president had already installed a new attorney general to handle Watergate. Harvard law professor Archibald Cox becomes special prosecutor. Picking up the gauntlet, Cox goes before Sirica to subpoena the elusive tapes. In his client's behalf, Charles Allen Wright pleads confidentiality to deny Cox's demand. Sirica holds Cox.
He is in turn upheld by the Court of Appeals.
The abrupt departure of Cox and Richardson draws a firestorm of protest. The president backs down. However, the apparent acquiescence by the White House falls short of its promise when 2 of the key tapes mysteriously disappear. In 18 minutes of another tape turn up blank. Pressed for an explanation, Presidential Secretary Rosemary Woods blames it on a variety of miscues. Nevertheless, the House Judiciary Committee, under the chairmanship of Peter Rodino, is convened to consider impeachment.
Wait a minute, let me check this out. Quick free for all oh, dude, hell
While
yeah.
the president was involved, that he did not realize or appreciate
at
the time the implications of his involvement. And I think that when the facts come out,
we went on the
good,
pay
man.
board in an effort
I get
to
it.
try
You
to make the
have, you have
controls
schizophrenia.
work.
Like, it's all good, dude. Like,
It's now very clear that there's no real attempt to control inflation. The only real attempt is to control the wages of working people.
I did not know they had deathmatch. No, what is it? Quick free-for-all deathmatch. That's great for practicing violent gunplay. No abilities for 30 kills wins. Say less.
And apparently not many who will side with him when it comes
I'm about to try that out right now. Let's go. Say less, bro. What are you, dude? Are you like being gay, bro? I talk so much crap about freaking Minecraft. Oh my god. Oh god. Oh god. Sure. Whatever you say.